The Lands Between is full of things trying to kill you, but the bosses, they're not just obstacles. They're tragic kings, rotting gods, and desperate failures clinging to power they were never meant to hold. Each one tells a story about what happens when divinity breaks down. So let's walk through every major villain in Elden Ring, starting with the one most players meet first, a limb-hoarding embarrassment to his own bloodline. Godric the Grafted. Godric the Grafted is the first real demigod most players encounter, and he sets the tone for everything Elden Ring is about to throw at you. He's found at the very top of Stormvale Castle in Limgrave, waiting in a wide courtyard surrounded by corpses and decay, and he is absolutely convinced he's the most important person alive. He is not. Here's the thing about Godric. He's a descendant of the Golden Lineage, the bloodline of Queen Marika and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. That sounds impressive until you realize every other demigod in the game openly mocks him as the weakest of the bunch. He's the runt, the embarrassment, the one nobody invites to family gatherings, and he knows it. So what does a demigod with an inferiority complex do? He starts grafting. Arms, legs, heads, entire limbs ripped from soldiers and trespassers, all stitched and fused onto his own body in this grotesque attempt to accumulate the power he was never born with. He's literally stapling other people's strength onto his frame because his own isn't enough. It's simultaneously awe-inspiring and deeply pathetic, but the real moment, the one that tells you everything about this character, happens mid-fight. Around 60% HP, Godric stops. He kneels beside a dead dragon, screams something about being a lord of all that is golden, and then severs the dragon's head clean off and forces it onto his own arm. The thing thrashes. It belches fire in ways that look like they're hurting him as much as you. His body can barely contain it, and that's Godric in a nutshell. All borrowed power, all performance. He has 6080 HP, drops 20,000 runes, and is technically optional. Players can walk right past Stormvale without ever fighting him. The game itself doesn't even require you to acknowledge his existence. His dialogue is overwrought, his theatrics are cranked to 11, and his entire philosophy is if I glue enough arms onto myself, maybe I'll matter. He's not evil in the traditional sense, he's desperate, decadent, a fading bloodline's last gasp dressed up in stolen flesh and bombastic speeches, but he sets a template. Bosses in Elden Ring don't stay grounded, they start as something recognizable, and then twist into something grotesque. Godric teaches you that lesson early, and if you think a man grafting a dragon onto his arm is disturbing, wait until you meet a queen who can't stop rebirthing her own children. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. Let's get something out of the way. Renala is barely a villain. She's barely conscious. You walk into the Academy of Raya Lucaria expecting a boss fight, and instead, you find a grieving woman floating in a library surrounded by creepy singing children, clutching an amber egg like it's the last thing keeping her alive, which honestly, it might be. Phase 1 of this fight has 3,493 HP, and here's the thing. She has a stance value of 0. You literally cannot stance break her. The game is telling you outright, this is not a fight, this is a puzzle. You're supposed to identify the glowing juvenile scholars singing with golden auras, smack them, and wait for Renala's protective barrier to collapse so you can actually hit her. She doesn't even attack you, she just floats there, cradling her egg while her children do all the work. It's less of a boss encounter and more of an intervention. But phase 2, completely different energy. You get teleported into this ethereal moonlit arena, she suddenly has 4,097 HP, and now she's a full sorceress throwing moon blasts and summoning wolves and dragons at you like she just remembered she used to be the most powerful mage in the Lands Between. Because she was. Before Radagon left, and that's really what defines her. She married Radagon, had 3 children with him, Radon, Ricard, and Ranni, and then he just left, walked out, went back to become Marika's second consort. Renala's response to this was to completely break down and start obsessively rebirthing everything around her. Those juvenile scholars floating in phase 1, products of her misapplied rebirth magic, childlike, eerie, wrong, she's trying to remake what she lost. Here's where the mechanical irony gets beautiful. Her Great Rune, the Great Rune of the Unborn, cannot be activated at a Divine Tower like every other Shardbearer's rune. It doesn't give you stat buffs. Instead, it unlocks the respect system. You beat this woman, and then you come crawling back to her every 50 hours because you decided you actually want to be a mage now. She goes from boss to the most visited NPC in the entire game. Players love her. They need her. Her villainy isn't aggression, it's stasis. She trapped herself and everyone around her in an endless loop of rebirth because she couldn't accept that Radagon was gone. That's not evil, that's just incredibly, devastatingly sad, but if you think a heartbroken queen is tragic, wait until you meet her son, the one who loved his horse so much he learned gravity magic just to keep riding it. Starscourge, Radon. Most demigods in Elden Ring want power for themselves. Radon wanted to be someone else entirely. From a young age, he was completely enamored with Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, and modeled his entire existence around becoming that same kind of warrior. A martial paragon, a general worthy of legend. And honestly, he got there. The problem is what happened after. Radon is the son of Radagon and Renala, which means he's got Golden Order royalty on one side and Liurnian sorcery on the other. He inherited his father's flaming red hair and leaned hard into the heroic implications of that lineage. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite being a warrior above all else, Radon learned gravity sorcery, not for combat advantage. He learned it so he could still ride his beloved horse, Leonard, because Radon grew into an absolute giant of a man, and Leonard did not. So rather than abandon his tiny horse, he literally bent gravity around himself to reduce his weight, which is, maybe the most endearing thing any demigod has ever done. But that same gravity magic scaled to something far more terrifying. Radon used it to hold the stars themselves in place, freezing the night sky and preventing destined celestial events from unfolding. By halting the stars, he was actively blocking Ranni's planned Age of the Stars from ever beginning. One demigod through sheer will and sorcery keeping the entire cosmos on pause, and then the Scarlet Rot came. His battle with Millennia left Caelid devastated and Radon's mind shattered. By the time you encounter him, the noble general is gone. What's left is a mindless, rotting berserker wandering Caelid, eating corpses, still so incomprehensibly powerful that the only way anyone can fight him is through the Radon Festival, a communal ritual where warriors gather at Redmane Castle specifically to take him down together. You don't fight Radon alone, you fight him with an army, and when you finally kill him, a star falls from the sky. The cosmos restarts, a crater opens in Limgrave leading to Nokron, and Ranni's questline lurches forward. One boss fight literally unlocks the heavens. Godric's death reshuffled a castle. Radon's death reshuffled destiny. The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC takes this even further, recontextualizing him as promised consort Radon, a mandatory god-tier boss that cements his position as one of the most important figures in the entire franchise. The guy who learned magic for his horse ended up holding back the universe. But if you think a demigod holding the stars hostage is disturbing, wait until you meet the one who's been hiding underground, building a blood dynasty around a kidnapped god. Mohg, the Omen. Most players will never find this fight, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Mohg the Omen is tucked away in the subterranean shunning grounds beneath Lindell. Hidden behind one of the most confusing sewer systems in gaming history, he's a secret boss requiring platforming, pipe jumping, and general misery to reach. But here's the thing, defeating him is mandatory if you want to access the Frenzied Flame prescription and unlock the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending. Want to burn everything to the ground. You have to go through the blood guy first, which is narratively fascinating. To embrace total chaos, you must first overcome someone who pursued a completely different kind of rebellion. Multiple competing anti-orders exist beneath the Erdtree, and they don't get along. Mohg was born an Omen alongside his twin brother Morgott, both cursed children of Marika and Godfrey. Their reward for being born with horns and monstrous traits. Confinement in the capital's depths, courtesy of the Golden Order's zero-tolerance policy for anything that looked slightly weird. Cool system, very fair. But while Morgott stayed loyal to the order that rejected him, Mohg went the opposite direction. He communed with the Formless Mother through blood incantations. The Formless Mother has a particular affinity for Omen blood, which means Mohg's curse, the very thing that got him locked underground, became his greatest asset. His prison became his temple. Now, mechanically, this fight is deceptive. He's technically a lesser version of Mohg, Lord of Blood, who sits in Mohgwyn Palace with 18,189 HP and must be defeated to access Shadow of the Erdtree. But here's where the community gets loud. Many players argue the Omen version is actually harder, and they're not wrong. Mohg, the Omen, is completely immune to bleed. Every Rivers of Blood enthusiast who carried their build through the entire game walks in here and discovers their strategy is worthless. He's also highly resistant to multiple other damage types, and his cramped arena makes those wide-sweeping blood attacks nearly unavoidable. A boss that punishes overconfidence harder than almost anything in Leyndell proper. His arc from imprisoned outcast to self-styled Bloodlord is one of the most compelling in the game. A cursed child who found power in the very thing that made him monstrous, and the fact that he stands between you and the most destructive ending in Elden Ring feels intentional. You want to burn it all down? First, prove you can handle someone who already tried to build something new from the ashes. But if you think one rebellious Omen is complicated, wait until you meet the one who stayed loyal. His twin brother has an even more tragic story to tell. Morgott, the Omen King. Remember Margit, that staff-wielding nightmare who stood at the gates of Stormvale and absolutely demolished you for 3 hours straight? The one who made you question every life decision that led to you buying this game? That was the king of the entire capital. Same person, same guy. Morgott, the Omen King, is the non-optional demigod boss standing between you and the mountaintops of the giants, and his fight in Leyndell Royal Capital is one of the most important progression gates in the entire game. But what makes Morgott fascinating isn't his moveset or his difficulty, it's everything he represents. Here's the thing, Morgott is a direct offspring of Godfrey and Marika, royal blood, golden lineage. He should be sitting on a throne with a crown and a parade. But he was born an Omen, cursed with horns and monstrous features, which meant the Golden Order did what it always does with things that don't fit its aesthetic, shoved him underground and pretended he didn't exist, him and his twin brother Mog, both thrown into the depths beneath Leyndell like embarrassing family secrets. Now here's where it gets complicated. Mog, faced with this rejection, said forget you guys, and went full-blood cult rebellion. They found an outer god, started his own dynasty, kidnapped a demigod. Reasonable response, honestly. But Morgott looked at the system that locked him in a sewer and said, I will protect this with my life. Which is, not ideal. His dialogue spells it out. He calls his curse a stain on the royal thrones. He sees himself as unworthy of the very kingdom he's defending. Yet he still fights every single Tarnished who tries to reach those thrones, personally deploying himself as Margit at key choke points to test whether anyone is actually worthy. The dude has been watching you since hour 3 of your playthrough. Every time you died to Margit's delayed attacks and rage quit to go farm runes in Limgrave, that was the king of the capital deciding you weren't ready yet. And that's the tragedy. Morgott rules a kingdom that never truly accepted him. He wears a false name to do its dirty work. He fights and bleeds for an order that would sooner cut off his horns than acknowledge his birthright. He's arguably more tragic hero than villain, a cursed royal who appointed himself protector of a system that views him as a stain. The Margit revelation retroactively reconfigures your entire early game experience. That wasn't some random fell omen blocking a bridge. That was the last loyal king, testing whether the Tarnished approaching his capital deserved to make it there alive, but at least Morgott chose his cage willingly. The next boss on our list never got that luxury because Malekith was chained to his duty by blood, betrayal, and the literal concept of death itself. Malekith, the Black Blade. Every mythology has a death god. The Greeks had Hades, the Egyptians had Anubis, Elden Ring has a giant wolfman in a crumbling sky temple who got absolutely screwed over by his own master. And honestly, his story might be sadder than any of theirs. Malekith is Marika's shadowbound beast, bound to her service by the greater will, and his one job was to guard the rune of death, destined death. The thing that makes sure everything in the lands between actually dies when it's supposed to. Marika sealed away destined death while keeping Malekith as its guardian. She took the thing he was sworn to protect, locked it away so it couldn't function, and then left him standing there like a bouncer at a club that's permanently closed. His entire identity was built around a purpose she hollowed out from the inside. That's not just betrayal, that's existential cruelty. Here's where it gets weirder. You've almost certainly met Malekith before his boss fight without realizing it. There's an NPC called Garank, the beast clergyman, who sits in the bestial sanctum and accepts death root donations. Same model, same voice, same clerical identity. The priest who quietly accepts your offerings is the same being who will try to kill you with a sword made of literal death, beast clergyman and black blade. Priest and executioner. It mirrors the game's obsession with hidden selves, with the gap between what something appears to be and what it actually is. The fight reflects this perfectly. Phase 1 is the Beast Clergyman, fighting with a stone dagger and earth-based incantations, almost gentle by late-game standards. Then the health bar hits the threshold and Malekith emerges. Suddenly he's airborne, launching Black Blade arcs that don't just damage you but temporarily reduce your maximum HP. Your health bar literally shrinks, which is, not ideal. The community loves his aesthetic, the acrobatics, the sweeping blade trails, Farum Azula crumbling around you in a thunderstorm. But there's a recurring complaint that the camera absolutely loses its mind during Phase 2. Malekith flips so aggressively that the lock-on can't keep up, turning a readable fight into a battle against your own perspective. But here's what elevates Malekith beyond a gate boss. When you kill him, destined death is released back into the world. That transforms Leyndell into the Ashen capital and enables everything that follows. Godfrey, Radagon, the Elden Beast. None of those final confrontations happen without Malekith's defeat. You don't just beat a boss. You undo the thing Marika spent centuries enforcing. You bring death back. And the guy who had to die for that to happen was the one who never wanted death to leave in the first place. Speaking of what awaits in that Ashen capital, the next fight is against someone who's been waiting a very, very long time to come home. Godfrey, first Elden Lord. This fight takes place in the exact same throne room where you killed Morgott. You fought the son, and now the father has come home to reclaim his seat, and he is not happy about what you've done to the place. Godfrey is Marika's first consort, the original Elden Lord. the man who led wars of conquest across the lands between and forged the Golden Order's empire through sheer, unrelenting violence. Every war, every crusade, every conquered territory, that was Godfrey swinging the axe while Marika pointed at the next target. But before he was Godfrey, he was Huara Lu, a savage barbarian warrior with zero interest in politics, theology, or table manners. Marika took this feral warlord and repackaged him into a noble lord, gave him the title, the armor, the lion pelt, the whole regal aesthetic. She built a king out of a killer because she needed one. Then she exiled him, stripped his grace, cast him out, made him the first tarnished, which means this fight carries insane symbolic weight. You, the player, are tarnished. Godfrey was the first tarnished. This isn't just a boss fight, it's the original exile versus the newest one, fighting for the right to sit on that throne. The fight is a two-phase legend boss with 21,903 HP and 120 defense. Phase 1 is Godfrey proper. Measured axe swings, devastating ground stomps that send shockwaves across the arena, a composed fighting style that says I am a king and you are an insect. Every attack has a readable telegraph. Then you hit roughly 60% HP and everything changes. He tears the lion pelt off his shoulders, drops the battle axe, and reverts to Huara Lu. Bare hands, no weapon, no pretense, just a screaming barbarian who wants to suplex you into the stone floor. He grabs you, lifts you overhead, and slams you down like a professional wrestler who took sports entertainment way too personally. Feral charges, lunging grapples, stomps that crack the earth open. The Golden Order's refinement was always a costume draped over raw, animalistic violence, and now you're seeing what was underneath the whole time. He drops 300,000 runes and the remembrance of Huara Lu upon defeat. Most people consider him one of the fairest late-game bosses in the entire game. His telegraphs are legible, his hitboxes are honest, and the fight has this satisfying dueling rhythm where you genuinely feel like two warriors testing each other. No gimmicks, no lifesteal, no swimming across a cosmic arena, just two guys and a throne room. The community consensus is that this should have been the final boss. The drama is perfect, the mechanics are satisfying, and the narrative payoff of defeating the first Tarnished to become the new Elden Lord is as clean as storytelling gets. Instead, you beat him, and then have to fight Radagon and a giant glowing space whale, which is, a choice. But speaking of Radagon, he's waiting right behind that door. And his identity crisis makes Godfrey's look like a minor wardrobe change. Radagon of the Golden Order, this is where every single thread in Elden Ring's mythology converges into one fight. And I mean every thread. Radagon is the first half of the final boss encounter, fought inside the Erd Tree immediately after Godfrey. Red hair flowing, massive hammer in hand, covered in glowing golden seal marks. He looks like a god, because he is one. Sort of. The fight itself is a melee-focused nightmare. Holy infused hammer swings, teleporting strikes, AoE blasts that punish you for existing in the wrong zip code. And if you die to the Elden Beast, which comes immediately after with zero chance to rest, you fight Radagon all over again. The two encounters are stitched together as one continuous endurance test, which is, not ideal, but the lore behind this guy is where things get genuinely unhinged. Radagon rose to prominence during the Lyurnian Wars, married Ranella, and fathered 3 children, Radon, Ricard, and Ranni. 3 kids who would all become some of the most destructive forces in the lands between. Solid parenting legacy there. Then he left, just walked out on Ranelu, and returned to Lindell to become Queen Marika's second consort. His title of the Golden Order signifies his role as the architect of the revised religious framework, the one who tried to reinforce the system after Marika began pulling it apart. But here's where it gets complicated. Marika used the Rune of Rebirth to become Radagon. They are the same being. One entity in 2 guises, Radagon's marriage to Ranella, his divorce, his return to Lindell, all of it was one divine will playing both sides simultaneously. Every alliance, every betrayal, every child born from those unions, orchestrated by a single god wearing 2 faces. This means the Golden Order was internally divided from the start. One half, Marika, wanted to shatter the Elden Ring. The other half, Radagon, wanted to mend it, and they were the same person. The final boss isn't just some powerful enemy, it's the living embodiment of a god at war with itself. Of the Golden Order doesn't just mean he served it, he literally was the structural integrity of it, the glue holding together a system that his other half was actively trying to destroy. When you fight Radagon, you're fighting the contradiction at the heart of the entire game's mythology. That might be the biggest lore bomb in Elden Ring. Bigger than Margit being Morgott, bigger than Godfrey being Huara Lu. The god who built the world's religion and the god who shattered it were never 2 people having a disagreement. They were one mind, tearing itself apart. But if you think a god fighting itself is as wild as this game gets, wait until you meet the demigod who has literally never known defeat and has the moveset to prove it. Millennia, Blade of Miquella. Some bosses are hard, some bosses are memorable, and then there's Millennia, the one boss that escaped the game entirely and became a cultural phenomenon. Her voice line, "I am Millennia, Blade of Miquella," isn't just dialogue. It's a declaration that's been memed, remixed, and screamed back at monitors by millions of players who heard it dozens of times before they finally put her down. She waits at the end of Elphael, Brace of the Haligtree, an optional remembrance boss that most players will never reach, and of those who do, many will never defeat. 33,251 total HP across 2 phases, a defense rating of 123, a stance value of 80 that requires 3 successful parries to break, numbers that tell you she's durable but don't remotely communicate why she broke people. The mechanic that defines Millennia is lifesteal. She regains HP with every successful attack, and here's the critical part, even when those strikes are merely blocked. Your shield doesn't protect you, it feeds her. This single design choice inverts everything most players instinctively do when facing difficulty. You're scared, so you turtle up, raise your shield, play safe, and she heals. She punishes the survival instinct itself. The game is telling you that passivity is death. You must be aggressive. You must attack into a boss that can kill you in a single combo. That combo, of course, is Waterfowl Dance, a multi-hit flurry that tracks, closes distance, and can delete an unprepared health bar outright. It became the single most discussed attack in Elden Ring's lifespan. Players developed frame-perfect dodge sequences, spacing strategies, and panic roll patterns just to survive at those few seconds. In Phase 2, she transforms into Millennia, Goddess of Rot. The lifesteal stays. She gains rot-infused attacks and bloom AoEs that carpet the arena in Scarlet Decay. The fight doesn't get easier, it gets wider. More threats, more pressure, the same relentless healing. And the thematic brilliance is right there in the mechanic. Rot sustains itself by feeding on living tissue. Her lifesteal isn't just a gameplay challenge, it's what rot does. She is the disease made flesh, growing stronger through contact, through engagement, through the very act of fighting her. She drops 480,000 runes on defeat, one of the most lucrative optional kills in the game. There are even subtle terrain considerations. She gains plus 10 fire negation and minus 10 lightning negation while standing in water. Details that only matter to players obsessive enough to optimize against her, and those players exist in enormous numbers. Millennia spawned entire YouTube careers, people soloing her at level 1, people beating her with a dance pad, people doing it naked with a torch. She became the ultimate proving ground, less a villain, more a force of nature that the community collectively threw itself against until mastery emerged from the wreckage. She's not evil. She's not scheming. She's a warrior afflicted by something she never chose, standing guard over her brother's dream. And she will simply not stop swinging until one of you is dead. The rot feeds, the blade drinks, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you hear it again. I am Millennia, Blade of Miquella. Now, after all of that, after demigods and rot goddesses and cursed kings, there's still one more thing waiting inside the Erd Tree. Not a warrior, not a demigod, something else entirely. The Elden Beast. So you just beat Radagon. You're exhausted, your flasks are half empty, your heart rate is elevated, and the game goes, cool, here's another boss. No rest, no resupply. Good luck. The Elden Beast is the true form of the Elden Ring itself, a vassal of the Greater Will sent to the lands between via a golden star long before any of the game's events took place. This isn't a demigod with a tragic backstory. This is a cosmic law wearing a body, and it wants you dead. Here's the thing that makes it mechanically unique. It is completely immune to all status effects. Bleed, nothing. Poison, nothing. Frost, rot, madness, absolutely nothing. Every status proc that carried you through this game is now worthless. You bring raw damage or you bring nothing, which is, not ideal for the thousands of players who spent 80 hours perfecting a Rivers of Blood build, but there's a compelling argument this immunity is thematically perfect. Bleed corrodes flesh. Poison breaks down biological systems. The Elden Beast isn't alive in any conventional sense. It is the fundamental structure of reality. You can't give cancer to a mathematical equation, you can't poison gravity. Surface ailments simply don't apply to the thing that underlies them all. Its signature attacks reinforce this alien nature. Elden Stars summons persistent homing projectiles that chase you across the arena, dealing constant chip damage. Concept of Orders creates closing rings of golden light you have to physically jump over or get caught in the detonation. The creature treats combat like an inconvenience, casually drifting to the other side of the arena while lobbing abstract geometry at you. Since patch 112, Torrent can be summoned for this fight, which significantly changes the chase dynamics. Instead of sprinting hopelessly after a glowing space whale, you can actually close distance. Quality of life change that fundamentally altered how frustrating the encounter feels. Defeating it drops 500,000 runes and the Elden Remembrance. More importantly, killing it breaks the Greater Will's direct hold on the lands between. The Cosmic Landlord is dead. The lease is up, do whatever you want with the button place. Now! The community discourse is genuinely split down the middle. One camp finds the Elden Beast thematically appropriate. You just fought Radagon, the personal challenge. Now you face the impersonal force behind him. You're no longer fighting a person. You're fighting the universe's operating system. The other camp calls it annoying and anticlimactic. After Godfrey's wrestling moves, after Radagon's hammer combos, after Millennia's relentless aggression, the last thing you fight is something that doesn't even want to be near you. Players have literally called it not a hard boss, just annoying compared to the S-tier bosses right before him. Both sides have a point. The Elden Beast is either the perfect thematic conclusion to a game about dismantling cosmic order, or the weakest major encounter in an otherwise immaculate boss roster. I don't know what to tell you. Even the final boss refuses to give you a clean answer. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.